Well, aloha, y'all. This is Miss Chantel Boucher with Believers in Business Creative, and I have one of my besties here that I've now known for I don't know. How long have we known each other now?
Probably over 15 years.
Oh my God, how did that happen?
We
We
we met when we were born.
Oh, I was gonna say, were we
Yeah.
five?
Yeah. I
Okay,
think we were
got it.
like 5 or 6.
Got it. So listen, I know Brandon because he used to be my old boss at a company that I used to work for in LA when I lived in Pasadena. And then I was like, one day we're gonna work together and leave this joint. And guess what? That's exactly what we did. And now, I mean, your face is still even on my website right now too, as well.
There you go.
I wanted to be able to introduce you all to him because he is one of my besties and somebody who I admire and who has taught me so much in the business development space. And so, Brandon, Mr. Brandon Kuramoto, say hi to the people.
What's up, people? Nice to meet you.
And he's great at speaking. Look how nice he is. Anyways, don't take the compliments too much on this podcast just because there's a lot going on right now. I can't compliment him too much. You know what I mean? Anyways, but I wanted to be able to introduce you guys to him, and he's going to share a little bit about what we do, what our company does, what some of the accomplishments we've had, and then also a little bit about his personal life. So, Brandon, if you can, chat up the people a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, like Chantel said, Chantel and I have known each other a little over 15 years, which seems crazy. Back when we were little tykes, back in when we got our start in advertising. So it was really fun. It's been an adventure, but yeah, my name is Brandon Kuramoto. I am 48 years old, believe it or not, going on 50, which is crazy to think about just that by itself. I
Asian
have,
raisin, it's a Hawaiian Asian combination.
yeah, I know, right?
You look the
I
same.
had,
Brandon looks the same, but he actually looks a little bit better now. You've lost
yeah,
some weight. You've got you're healthy at the same time, a little
yeah,
healthy in ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have 4 kids. I have a 26-year-old. I have a 20-year-old, going to be 20-year-old. I have a 18-year-old and a 14-year-old. And I've been married going on 20 years next month, actually in June.
Yeah.
So
Your wife,
busy
Sarah, who
household.
is lovely. She's such
Yeah.
a good lady.
Yeah. So busy household, need to say. But pretty much my background is all in advertising. I have over 17 years in advertising, over 26 years in business development and business to business sales, helping businesses consulting. But really, my primary niche market is advertising, especially in the digital marketing space. And that's where Chantel and I have really found a passion in helping businesses and helping other entrepreneurs out there to really, improve what they're currently doing or to get them started. A lot of businesses are opening up. People have that itch to own a business, but they don't know how to generate leads or how to get customers. And that's where, there's a dime a dozen advertising firms out there, whether they're the boutiques or the large companies. But really, what kind of stood out to me, especially as you launch Believers in Business, was the foundation of being honest. I think that's the biggest thing that's lacking in this space, is because
Oh
you
yeah.
can't really trust people, right? You don't know the market itself. The digital space is so broad where
Mhm.
you don't know if things are working, if they're not working. You're
You
just
know what
going
I would
off
tell
what
people
people say.
too, not to cut you off, Brand, because you made such a great point when, most of our clients, and kid you not, are coming from working with someone else in the space that was dishonest with them
Yeah,
and was saying they were doing things and then wasn't doing it. This is ridiculously common. And I always tell people it's very similar to car mechanics sometimes to where it's like, well, I don't know anything about car mechanics or how to look under the hood or what I'm even looking
yeah.
for most of the time. So yeah, I wanted to put some emphasis on that because it's very true.
Yeah,
Very
and the great thing about it is not only believers in business, and it's not a shameless plug, but believers in business is when you think about the combined experience of the people that are involved with believers in business, it's remarkable. I mean, you're looking at over 50 years of combined experience when it comes to advertising and marketing, and not just one type of business. You know, you have businesses out there that focus specifically on one specific type of business. We've
Mhm.
dealt with entrepreneurs, we've dealt with startups, we've dealt with companies, organizations of all sizes,
Yeah.
right? Small business as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a broad spectrum of what people are looking for and what they need, and it's not a cookie cutter approach. And I think that's where the market's really in need of today, and that's a solution that we're able to bring. So I'm really, you know, honored to be a part of it, to be able to, you know, put in my experience as well, to work with you, obviously, as well as the team that we have, and, you know, just really help people out there, and seeing what you're doing out in Texas and across the nation too is pretty remarkable. So, yeah, there's big things coming ahead.
Aw. Thanks, Brandon. I'm all about shameless plugs. What are you kidding me?
Right.
Just And so I know that, okay, so Brandon, just so you guys know, has been on a little bit of a hiatus. And I know that I've even had some meetings that we were going to set up with some of our clients that were going to be speaking with him and getting him integrated in thing, but he's been on a little bit of a break. And I wanted to be able to bring him on here so that he can share his story right now, because this is real life, people. Like, things happen, and people can get sick with different things, and it affects their lives and their families. And also being a family member that might have somebody going through something similar to this. And I think it's so important that when we have something happening so closely to us, and because I consider Brandon like a family member, you know, we've known each other and we work with each other for so long. Um, that I'm very even affected by it in so many ways. In some ways, really hurtful ways, and in some ways really amazing ways, because it puts things into perspective in life. And so with that being said, Brandon, can you share with people a little bit about what your this past year has looked like for you and what has happened? Because I really think it's important that we share with people, because this is reality.
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, I'll try to take a big story and kind of condense it a little bit. And, you know, we'll go a little bit more detail about it later on. But February of 2023, I was feeling ill over the holidays of 2022. So over the Thanksgiving holiday, Christmas holiday, wasn't, you know, feeling well, wasn't feeling very social, had people over, wasn't, you know, drinking a couple of beers or having a couple of drinks, wasn't eating a lot. I felt bloated, which was a little bit different because as men, we don't tend to feel bloated, obviously. Was feeling a little bit bloated, a little bit out of breath. I had a cough that would not go away for whatever reason, and people were automatically throwing out the C word. Hey, you got to check it out. You got to make sure. And, you know, luckily I was negative. So I knew it wasn't that. So I'd gone into urgent care to take a look and to see what was going on. And, you know, I thought I had bronchitis. The doctors, you know, evaluated me. You know, they said, yeah, we think you have bronchitis. Take this, you know, medicine, take the antibiotics for 10 days. You'll start feeling better in a few days. Well, a few days go by, taking medication, don't feel better. It actually felt a little bit worse. So I started taking ibuprofen, you know, because I was starting to have a lot of discomfort and pain. So I was taking 600 milligrams of ibuprofen every 6 hours. And it was helping a little bit with the pain. The bloating was getting worse. So I
Mm.
started taking gas medicine. That's just my medication, thinking I could solve everything,
Well, yeah, yeah, hey, because
especially
even
as a
at that
man,
point,
right?
well, yeah, because it's not like, women, we have all of our weird hormonal stuff
Yeah.
going on all the time. Bloating is quite normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started taking gas medicine. I'm thinking, you know, this is going to help. And every time I would eat, right after I was done eating, I would have, you know, kind of like this pain in the side, in my sides and in the front of my stomach. And I'm like, this is just very uncomfortable. And little by little, you know, I started seeing the medication wasn't working, the cough wouldn't go away. I was out of breath. I actually stopped sleeping in bed and started kind of like sleeping, sitting up on the couch because it was so uncomfortable. It felt like I was drowning when I was laying down, and I would get up and like, you know, just like out of breath. I didn't know what it was. Thought it was maybe sleep apnea or something like that. And little by little as my
But at
stubbornness.
this point, because I know you were on like a bit of a weight loss journey
Yeah,
previously to that. So was the weight already kind of off at that point when this was happening?
it actually was. So
Which
I
what makes it even
was
more confusing because you would
yeah,
think that with
it was crazy. It was crazy. So I've traditionally always throughout my life have been, struggled with weight, like a lot of people out there today. And, I'm a bigger guy. I was about like 260 at the time. And I work virtually from home. So I didn't have to get dressed up. I would work in pajama bottoms and then just a regular nice shirt. So I didn't really notice anything that was going on. But what I started to realize is like, um, the day that my boss called me, she said, "Hey, we're going to have some people coming over, some executives who want you to come on in, the once in a blue moon, right? It's like an eclipse." So I was trying to get dressed and I realized like none of my clothes fit. This is like within a month period. None of my clothes were fitting. My dress clothes wouldn't fit. My belt wouldn't actually reach the first hoop in my belt buckle, which was crazy. So I'm like thinking, what is going on? So I actually weighed myself and I was like 275. So it was like 15 pounds heavier than what I normally am. Seeing that I wasn't eating over the holidays, that was kind of weird. I wasn't eating really a lot. So I started freaking out, right? And then I started realizing I'm out of breath. I couldn't breathe a lot, stopped taking showers because it was painful to try to actually shower because I would go out of breath. And when I get out, I'd be so breathless that I'd get dizzy and lightheaded. So I kind of knew something was going on.
did you have any
But
kind of like fainting spells or anything like that during this
I
time?
didn't faint at that time. At that time, I was just lightheaded. I was just like, oh, maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe it's a virus or something like
Yeah.
that. So, pretty much just kind of avoid it. I was like, it's going to get better. Hopefully, in about a week or two, it'll get better. And my wife was just on me. She was like, we have to take you in, and I was so focused on work and getting stuff done because that's my mentality. My mentality is, hey, work now, make money, be successful, chase whatever I need to chase. Everything else I'll take care of on the weekend if I have time. Right. We all have been there. Entrepreneurs are infamous for this, and that's kind of the mindset that I've
Yes.
always
I
had.
was just gonna say, and it's like you just kind of work at any free moment you have. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing because there's just always something to do.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
that's happening. And finally, she just got to the point. She's like, we're taking you in, this is enough. So, and within the meantime, within that last few days that I had not gone to the doctors, I started noticing that my feet were swollen. And I was like, huh, maybe I should just lift my feet, and elevate them because that's what I hear all the time.
Yeah.
Take more ibuprofen, which I was doing. And, it wasn't working. So she took me into the doctors. We went in the emergency room. Within the third step of walking into the emergency room, the nurse automatically looked at me and she was like, "What's your name?" I could only give her my first name because not that I didn't know my last name, but I was so much out of breath
That
that
you
I
just
couldn't catch
stop.
my breath. I couldn't talk. And she was like, "Get a wheelchair, get back here now." They wheeled me in the back. Doctor came in, rolled up my pants, pushed on my shins, and he goes, "You have edema." And I'm like, "What is that?"
Uh,
Right? I'm like, "Is that tied to bronchitis? Like, what's going on?" He goes, "No."
yeah.
He goes, "This is very serious." He goes, "Edema is essentially is when fluid builds up in your system and your body cannot, release it, and
Mm,
it's kind of like when you push down on putty, how putty just stays indented. That's
yes.
what happened with my skin. It was like literally anywhere where they would touch, it
Oh.
would stay indented.
Hmm.
And then I hear them on the microphone. They're like, "We have a red crash cart patient. We need to transfer to the ER, like stat." And I'm thinking, what does that mean?
You're
And
like,
I'm
ooh.
Yeah, and I'm freaking out, and they're telling me they're like, we got to get you over there right now. We have a feeling that something major is going on with you. Needless to say, they ran tests. They came in. They said, "Brandon, it's like what we thought. You're actually in heart failure currently. You have what we call congestive heart failure, and you also have kidney failure. Your kidneys are shutting down." And I'm like, "I feel fine. Like, what are you talking about?" And they're like, what is like your normal weight?" And I'm like, 260. They're like, you're at 300 pounds right now.
What?
I had within about a week and a half, I gained an additional 25
No
pounds.
way.
Yeah. It was scary because you don't realize it, right? You're just like, oh,
Well, yeah, you're not thinking about it.
my clothes are a little bit tighter. Maybe I'm just a little bit bloated,
Well, the
right?
thing is, because well, it sounds like too the way that the fluids and stuff were building up, it was distributed differently than a normal weight gain.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty scary. It was really scary. So I actually found out that I had edema in back of my neck, in my back, my legs. So it was already my whole body was turning into putty pretty much.
That's crazy.
And found out that it could actually go into the brain. And they were saying they're like, you have so much fluid that if you didn't come in, maybe another day or two, you would have passed away just because the fluid goes rancid in your body and it'll essentially shut down all your organs. So luckily,
You
I
caught it at
listened
the
to my
right
wife.
time. You
Yeah,
caught
I listened to my wife, actually went in, and that's where everything just began from February of 2023.
And it's crazy because you would think that, oh, that's the end of the story. They got rid,
Yeah,
they fixed it. This is literally the beginning of the
yeah,
story. And
yeah.
so kind of tell us and walk us through the process of what did they do then for you? Like how did they treat that once you were there?
So when
Like
I was there, essentially what they had to do is they had to give me injections of it's called Lasix. It's essentially a diuretic which sucks out all the moisture. And then you excrete, you urinate the moisture out. So I was hospitalized in critical care unit for 9 days during that episode, and they removed essentially 40 pounds of fluid from my system. Yeah, and they
how
had
long did
to
that take to do to remove
it
40?
was probably within 7 days. So, like in 7 days, they had to take all that fluid out because it was putting too much pressure on my heart. And then I found out too that my heart, a normal heart rate, they call it EF factor, is roughly about like 65, 70%. That's what a normal person, their EF is. Mine was at 20%. So my heart was pretty much failing. And so it really snowballed, because at the time that Lasix, it actually ruins your kidneys, but they're trying to protect your heart. So they have to figure out what's more important. Do we
Gotcha.
protect the heart right now? Do we look at the kidneys? What do we need to do? So they essentially had to drain all that fluid out. It in turn did make my kidneys worse. I ended
But
up
it made you live,
it
correct?
made me live. It made me live.
Right.
And then it gave me another day to essentially get healthy, right? Is to go on a diet, to exercise. Before that, I was never exercising
Right.
because I was just too busy,
Right.
So I made it a point to exercise, to eat right. There's something that death does to you.
Yeah.
It motivates you a little bit more than somebody saying, hey, you need
Did
to
you
lose.
die at this point yet in the hospital?
No, not at
At
this
this
point.
point? Okay, got it.
No.
Yeah.
So that's when I was first diagnosed. Came home, started losing weight. I got down to essentially about 230 pounds. So I lost an additional 30 pounds. So essentially from that episode, it took about 3 months to lose 70 pounds. And then I lost the 70 pounds. I had diabetes. I was able to get that in control. My A1C was at a 12.1. I got that down to a 6.1, which is normal. So people that say you can't reverse diabetes, you can actually reverse diabetes without medicine. I was on insulin. I was able to get off of insulin and get off of all medication completely for diabetes. So that was good. So I was able to do that. And then, a couple months later, as things were getting better, this is kind of like our journey in life, right? As things start getting better, you're like, hey, it can't get any worse. And then
There's
some
a danger in always saying that, Brandon.
Yeah. And I didn't say it. I was thinking it though. I was like, it can't get worse. It can
You're like,
only
you
get
didn't want to
better.
speak it out there
Yeah.
because you know how that goes. So tell us about that next.
Yeah. So a few months later, as I was getting better, I was losing weight. My heart was getting better. Everything was starting to improve. Tests were getting better. I went out, took my wife to breakfast, came home, took a nap, woke up, and I couldn't see out of my right eye. It was double vision. I would see 3, 4 of everything in the right eye. My left eye was so strain because of what I was
This is
looking at my right
overworking,
eye. Yeah.
overcompensating.
So I thought I had a stroke. So I'm
It sounds like a
thinking,
strokey thing, honestly.
yeah.
Sounds
So
like
I'm like, what's going on? So at this time, I'm learning my lesson. Automatically, I go into the doctors, right? I'm not waiting.
yeah.
And they're telling me we have to set you up with a, orthopedic surgeon or, someone who's not orthopedic, it's a ophthalmologist
Oh, yeah.
to take a look. We have to see what's going on. So go in. They let me know you have diabetic retinopathy. I'm like, but my diabetes is reversed. They're like, no, this is from years of it going untreated. And
Wow.
essentially, you're bleeding behind the retina and you have swelling and fluid. And I'm thinking, here we go again with the fluid, right?
So much fluids all the time, huh?
Yeah. So I started getting treatment for that, which is a shot in the retina. They would give you a shot with a needle in the
Yeah.
eyeball, which is crazy.
What?
You're awake, and they
What?
do it once a month in both eyes. So I was going through that for about 6 months. Luckily, with the grace of God, my eyesight returned. It improved. And I'm thinking, hey, I got through this. That's great. I couldn't drive for 6 months. I'm like, everything's going well. And then the next thing you know, I wake up on a Friday morning. This is months after that. Wake up on a Friday morning and I thought my stomach was messed up and I run to the bathroom and I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of a normal thing, I guess, when you eat something bad. And just kept on going to the bathroom like every 2 minutes. And one time I happened to look in the toilet and the only thing that was in the toilet was blood and blood clots. And I'm like thinking, what the heck is going on?
Like, how were you just, did it happen all at once, or did you notice it happening little by little and it just got that bad?
No, it was all at once. It just literally like
You
if,
just gave birth.
yeah, I literally just, it's the scariest feeling ever. Like I was so scared that it was kind of like a taboo thing. I didn't want to talk about it. I was like, maybe if I just stay quiet, it'll go away. But I was like, I have to let my wife know. So I walked down the stairs. I let her know. I said, hey, babe, I have some blood in my stool. That's how I said it.
Okay.
And she's like thinking, oh, he probably has a little bit of blood on the toilet paper. That's normal every now and then.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a hemorrhoid or something like that. So she's like, keep an eye out on it. So I go back upstairs, lay down, and I start feeling weird. And I'm thinking, like, what's going on? I try to get up, and this room is spinning. It's spinning, and I'm like, whoa. And I have to go to the restroom, use the restroom again, and it's just blood, blood, blood. Wash my hands, turn around and wipe my hands on the towel, and I wake up on the floor.
So, okay, this is the time you passed out. This is you
Yeah,
passed.
yeah,
You just, was it just for, I mean, I would say this is obvious, but it's blood loss related.
yeah. It's extreme blood loss. So
Is it also
from
fluids in general? I think maybe just fluids and the blood made you pass
yeah,
out.
yeah, it's crazy. So when I went to the hospital for that, so obviously 911 was called. They took me in right away. At that time, I was already so a normal person for a man, your blood level, your what they would call your hemoglobin, your red
Yeah.
blood cell count should be at 13.1.
Yeah.
Mine at the time when I was taken to the hospital was at 7. So it was literally half of what it should be
Yeah.
for a normal male. So
Yeah.
they had to do a bunch of tests. They had to start blood transfusions. Needless to say, they did 6 tests. They did colonoscopy, endoscopy, radiation tests. They did a capsule test. They did every test in the book. The second day I was in the hospital, I almost died. My blood pressure dropped. I think it was like 60 over 50, which it's supposed to be 120 over 80. It was 60 over 50. And even though they would transfuse blood, my blood pressure would not go back to normal.
Well, and then what happens too, I think when your blood pressure drops that much, they have to be careful as to what they give you now in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They couldn't do a whole lot, especially because I was diagnosed with CHF.
Hmm.
Plus, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. They couldn't use um, uh, kind of like a it's like a special fluid or whatever that they put to be able to see like where the blood's coming from. So they had to run every test they could, but they couldn't find it. So the doctors, the team pretty much said, Brandon, we've done everything we can. We can't locate the blood. We can't locate the bleeding. We know you're bleeding, but we can't locate where it's coming from.
Where it's coming from. That's
So they're like it just has to stop. We're hoping that it stops. So I'm in what they call a step down unit. Step down unit is one step further from critical unit. So it's kind of like you have people that actually die in that ward every day. Like you hear people flatlining, and it's just a really scary
so
experience.
it's like you have critical and right below it is that one?
So
Or
critical, yeah. So you have regular care, then you
yeah.
have critical care, and then you have the step down unit, and that's kind of like the last.
Oh,
Yeah. So
you
it's the highest level support. You have like somebody
I
who's,
didn't even realize there was another one, to be honest.
yeah.
I just thought it was
Yeah, I didn't either. And the crazy thing about it, and this is, I don't want to turn it into a religious thing, but obviously, I'm a
well,
Christian,
this
you're a
is, and it's
Christian.
also this experience that you've had, and you're just telling your story,
Yeah. The one thing I really believe is like God does protect our minds. If you are a believer, you are somebody who has faith, whether you have faith in God, whether you have faith in what you would call a higher power, to be able to go through those things and to be there, to be checked in is probably what really, kind of like puts people from doing okay to like not doing good at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was there, as many times as I almost like passed away or lost it, I was fine. Like mentally, I was thinking like, hey, I'm fine. My family flew in from Vegas. I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. Like, why are they here? That's crazy. People I hadn't spoken to for years were showing up at the hospital, and I'm like, wow, like I'm loved. Little did I know, yeah, I was loved, but little did I know, like I was in a very bad spot where people didn't think I was gonna make it.
Yeah, that was interesting. When you were telling me about it after it happened, because at that time, just so you guys know, during this time this is happening, I'm like really not aware of how bad all this was. And even preceding this issue, we would call me like, oh, I had to go to the doctor. I don't know, something's going
Yeah,
on with this, something's going on with that. And I'm thinking, well, it can't be that, but I didn't even realize that it was this critical till way after the fact, but he didn't realize how critical it was. So how can you portray and explain explain to other people when you're not even you had your mind protected, like you said, because
yeah,
he was just like, oh wow, cool, people are here. He not realizing that they actually came to say goodbye to you.
yeah. It was probably the most humbling experience as a man,
Yeah.
because I had to use the restroom. I couldn't go to the restroom. They pretty much told me you have to stay in bed. Let us know when you have to go, and we'll change you. We'll do all the stuff. So, understanding what women go through, a fraction of what women go through when they're giving birth, it's crazy. Like I was just like all dignity. It kind of felt like my manhood was stripped from me.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm thinking in my head, you know what, God, it's in your hands. Like I have no say in this matter. I think at that moment, God was teaching me patience. He was teaching me surrender. You get a hyper focus on life and death, which is a little bit, kind of unique. And yeah, come to find out, they had to transfuse 18 units of blood, which is the human body only holds 10 units of blood.
That's crazy
So
to me.
they transferred almost 2 human bodies worth of blood
Double, that's nuts.
just within, my situation. And they had to hold a blood drive for the doctors because they ran out of A positive blood. So it's crazy to think about like everything at work that was going on. I had no medication of my normal medication, the 7 to 8 medications that I'm on. I couldn't take it, obviously, because I was in very bad condition. But within that time, I was able to heal on the ninth day. I actually stopped bleeding, and they pretty much cut me loose. They said, "Hey, you could go home." I was very anemic. I couldn't really walk. I was in a wheelchair, had to be wheelchaired to my next appointments. So it was a very scary, kind of thing that I was going through.
Mhm.
And then, obviously that was getting better. I was recovering from that, which took a couple of months just to recover from that. Now, all this time, I'm not working. I've been out of work for 9 months,
Yeah,
the
how you
first time in over 30 years.
and then
So,
anybody who knows Brandon, and if anybody who knows me, I'm never not working, Brandon's never not
yeah,
working.
we're cut from the same cloth. I
It's
mean,
like it's just normal for us. People have hobbies and we work our
yeah,
hobbies.
yeah, it's scary, So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, hey, God's giving me this time. I need to figure things out. I need to just, be patient.
Mhm.
But it does something to you mentally. It just kind of messes with you because in your mind you're scared. For the first time in life, I was actually scared because I'm thinking, am I going to wake up tomorrow?
Yeah.
And after you wake up for a month, you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm okay. You
That
know,
visit that you had when everybody came to see you in the hospital, were you unconscious at some point?
yeah,
And
I had gone in and out of consciousness like probably 3 days that I was in the hospital. My wife was very like just by my side like nonstop because she was, she didn't know what was going to happen. I could just remember her talking to the doctor, her asking them like, what should we do? What's going on? I'm thinking, oh, like, holy cow, like, what are they doing? And yeah, it was just a scary experience, but it was an enlightening experience as well.
Mhm,
There's something that you kind of maturity that you develop when you go through that. I
mhm.
used to hear about it all the time, and I'm like, oh, that's just kind of hoopla. They're so out of it.
Yeah.
That's probably why. I understand now what that is. It's kind of like you realize how precious life is.
Mhm,
You start understanding what's important, what's not important. The big things that you chase in life, the success, the money, the promotions, the next level stuff, that
mhm.
becomes secondary. The only thing that becomes a priority is like number one, am I right with God? Right. Number two, like, can I give to other people the experience that I've gone through and hopefully enlighten them with something? So
Mhm,
it kind of just opens your eyes to a lot of things. But through that experience, it's led me to where I'm at today.
mhm.
And today, which is kind of what could get worse, right? But it does.
So
I
I'm going to, because what I want to do is I want to put this video into two parts.
okay.
Because I was kind of waiting till we got to this point because I was like, that's gonna be a good time to kind of
Yeah.
separate the videos, because just when you think things can't get worse, every like little bit something happens, but miracles also happen too as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for coming on here and just being so transparent, and especially like how you were saying being a man too as well. I know it's just it's different when it comes to vulnerability sometimes, and a different kind of humbleness. Like Brandon's actually is a very humble guy in general. And even though he's got a lot of drive and he's stubborn and all these other things, he's actually a very humble person. But this is in a different way. This is like just next level. And so I appreciate you coming on here and sharing this. I think it's important for people to be educated about this. And in the next section, we're going to go over kind of what happened in his next phase. So I'm going to encourage you all to, keep an eye out for our second video, um, because it's important educationally wise. And also from a spiritual level, I think it's important. And the importance of finding your relationship with God and truly seeking whatever truth is, and getting any preconceived ideas in your head out of what you think God is, and truly going after him yourself in like a real and transparent way. And so thanks Brandon for kind of coming on, and we're going to go into phase 2. We'll continue recording into our phase 2, but is there anything that you want to close with?
No, I think, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be able to get on here and, obviously reconnect. And it's been
Of
a
course.
long hiatus, right? So that's always fun and nice. But, I just want to really encourage everybody out there, um, take a step back. Take a step back and kind of like your daily life and all the things that are important to you today, whatever it is, whether it's your career, whether it's, starting that business, whatever it may be, just take a step back and really appreciate the smaller things in life. Because when those smaller things, when they're jeopardized, where you believe and you finally come to the conclusion, like, I might not have another day to be able to enjoy these small things, you
Mhm.
start to grasp onto those things. And it's good to be able to do that when you're in a position to be able to do it and then do it consciously versus having to be forced to do it,
Absolutely.
so take the time.
I I love that. And again, we're gonna go over some more of this stuff in our second video, you guys. And I think it's gonna be, again, just really important to hear these things. And we just never know what other people are going through too, as well. Like, we're very fortunate to have Brandon sharing his story in a very public way. But there's a lot of people that go through these things in silence. They go through it in silence, even when it comes to their own families, where they're not being transparent about what they're going through. And so hopefully, even if this reaches just a handful of people, that it can encourage you to make some great changes and change your mindset on things. So again, thank you, Brandon,
Thank
and
you.
you guys in our second half of the video. Bye.
Talk to you soon.